This is Dave Meinhard with the Vatakuti Foundation in Detroit, and I want to welcome you all to this Vatakuti Foundation webinar series program on transoral robotic surgery and patient selection in robotic surgery for cancer of the mouth and throat. And I'd like to introduce our moderator for the program, Dr. Anand Subash, and he is a consultant head and neck surgical oncologist and of course a robotic surgeon at Trustwell Hospital in Bangalore. And so I'm going to turn it over to him with gratitude for your efforts today and being here. So thank you for being here, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Thanks for that. What a wonderful way to start the academic calendar through a webinar, and that too thanks to the entire Vatakuti Foundation to have shown trust in us to take this forward and to conduct a webinar on this. And I think it's been given to the very right and the most apt person who think at this point I think can lead this. That is the patient selection for TORS, the transoral robotic surgery. Introducing the speaker today, the greatest pride that I take in introducing Dr. Dabas is as my teacher, my mentor, my guru. When I've learned things from him, the very short stint that I had with him, I had a lot to learn from him. Probably one of the finest robotic surgeons that I've seen across me, and probably one of the he is too refined to take out anything from the oropharynx or from the larynx through the robot. That's it. Sir is currently the director and the chief of robotic surgery at BL Kapoor Cancer Center. Sir, I think these are the few words that I have for you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anand, for the introduction. And I would like to thank Dr. Mahinder Bhandari and Dave for giving us an opportunity to be here at the webinar series of Vatakuti Foundation. And what I can see that we discussed a lot about urology, and now he has given me a chance to speak on TORS, that is transoral robotic surgery, in this webinar series. So what I'm speaking about is the patient selection for TORS, that is transoral robotic surgery. So now why we need TORS? So if you know the history of oropharynx, oropharyngeal cancers were treated by surgical discipline a long time back, maybe I will say 30 years back. And then because of the morbidity of oropharynx surgery, the surgical treatment was totally replaced by non-surgical treatment, that was chemo plus radiation. Why? Because open surgery was an extensive surgery, which was maximally invasive, I can say that. The mandibular swing release, mandibulotomy, pharyngotomy, with a lot of morbidity, with tracheostomy and gastrostomies. So the complication rate was very, very high, 10 to 60% long-term morbidity was there with surgical discipline when you are doing the surgery with open method. And this surgery was totally replaced by chemoradiation, and it is a very fast decision to move from surgery to radiation therapy in favor of organ preservation. And the local regional control and the survival rate were similar between chemoradiation and surgery. So surgery was replaced by chemoradiation just in view of organ preservation. And you can see what all treatments is going around for oropharynx. We can go for primary radiation therapy alone, or with chemotherapy or biological therapy. And surgery can be done by many approaches, like external approach by mandibulotomy or pharyngotomy. Classical transoral approach can be done very, very small tumors for tonsil, transoral laser surgery, and nowadays transoral robotic surgery. So we moved very fast to organ preservations, and what we overlooked was long-term complications of this treatment, we say chemoradiation. And the complication of chemoradiation include mucositis, fibrosis, xerostomia, dermatitis, dysphagia, osteochondronecrosis, and neutropenia. The one complication I want to stress on is that dysphagia. So we have never seen the long-term complication of chemoradiation when we change our treatment from surgery to radiation. And now when we have a technology, we say robotic technology, which is minimal invasive, and there is improved visualizations, there are no tremors, and the improved range of motions with robotic arms. can we come back into the surgical discipline for oropharynx and we can decrease the morbidity of our chemoradiation or open approach, which can result in excellent functional and oncological outcomes. So we have to review that, and I will try to prove this, that this is the treatment of future in oropharynx. So what is TORS? It is an surgery which is done with the robot which has arms to remove the cancer from hard to reach areas from the mouth and the throat. With three-dimensional image, a surgeon can see, and surgeons guides the tools at the end of robotic arms to remove the cancer. So now you see in this picture, this is the exposure of the oral cavity. This is the robot, this is the patient. We are docking the robot on the patient, and the surgeon sits on the console to remove the tumor from the patient's oropharyngeal cavity without being close to the patient, and using the robotic technology without leading to more side effect to the patients. No mandibulotomy, no release, no pharyngotomy. And this is how we remove. Just showing a video about that. See how we can move the robotic arms sitting distantly from the patient, can see a three-dimensional view. Surgery can be completed fast with no bleeding, very less morbidity, and with good margins. So this is what we say TORS, transoral robotic surgery. And if you see, this TORS surgery got an FDA approval for oropharyngeal cancers in 2009. But you can see how the robotic technology is evolving. A robot came into picture in 1999, and after 10 years, it was approved in head neck with a lot of work from very eminent surgeons from US. I will say Dr. Weinstein and Dr. Bert Bailey. And then after 2009 onwards, the TORS has been the most done surgery in US for throat cancers. And the reason was less morbidity, good functional outcomes, and good oncological outcomes for oropharyngeal cancers when you treat these patients with this technology. Now our principle of TORS is maximizing the exposure, and we have to minimize the surgical morbidity. And in majority of cases, if you properly select, we can avoid tracheostomy and pharyngotomy and flap reconstructions to get a good excellent functional outcomes and oncological outcomes. So this is an option for treatment intensification without increasing the toxicity as compared to chemoradiation. And this was the study, which is, I can say, is a landmark paper in head neck cancers, where we find one virus which was associated with causation of oropharyngeal cancer, and that was HPV virus, human papilloma virus. And this study was done by Dr. Kiang from MD Anderson. And what he found out in this study was HPV is a virus which is associated with oropharyngeal cancers. And the cancers which are associated with oropharyngeal cancer, associated with HPV, are low risk cancers. But the cancers which are associated with smoking, and they are not associated with HPV, they are high risk patients. So based on this paper, he divided oropharyngeal cancers into three categories, which were low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk. And what he found out was that HPV positive cancers, most of the patients, either the smokers or non-smokers, they were coming in low risk or sometimes in intermediate risk. But when you talk about the cancers which were HPV negative, either with less smoking or more smoking, most of the patients were under high risk category. And he divided this oropharyngeal cancers into three categories based on HPV status, smoking history, and based on nodal status. And you can see a huge difference between survival between HPV positive and HPV negative. You can see that 3-year survival in HPV positive was 93%, and as compared to HPV negative, there are 46%. And all patients were treated with chemoradiation, the same chemotherapy dose, the same schedule, and the same radiation dose to every patient. But you see the difference between survival when we treated these patients with chemoradiation. So what was the new concept came out in everybody's mind? Can we reduce the treatment in HPV positive patients? Are we exposing them to a radical treatment or a more toxic treatment? Or can we do something else for HPV negative to improve their survival? From here, we started thinking about TORS. Can surgery will be a thing which can decrease the morbidity in HPV positive and improve the survival outcomes? And can TORS be a good option for HPV negative cancers to improve their survivals? So now if you see this paper, long-term survival and swallowing outcomes in advanced stage oropharyngeal cancers. So if you see the graphs, this is P16 positive, means HPV positive cancer. P16 negative is basically the blue one, and P16 positive the red one. This is survival. This is with smoking. Again, P16 negative is no, the smokers are basically the blue one, and the non-smokers are the red one. So if you see significant difference, you can see a significant difference between P16 and P16 negative and positive, and smokers and non-smokers. And if you see this table, the 5-year survival, 10-year survival, and 15-year survival. P16 positive, 71%, 60%, 56%. And now you see for the P16 negative, 35%, 29.6, 21.2 is extremely low. When you see for smokers, again 49, 39.6, 31.3. For non-smokers is a very good. So the patients who were smokers and HPV negative, the outcomes were very, very poor when we treated these patients with chemoradiation. And you can see that in this graphs. These are the patients. These are P16 positive, and the blue line is surgery, then chemoradiation, and the red line is chemoradiation. So for P16 positive, there is hardly any difference when you treat the patient either with surgery or chemoradiation. When we talk about P16 negative, you see the difference between surgery and chemoradiation. There's a significant difference between outcomes when you treat this patient with surgery or with chemoradiation. And you can see from this table. For P16 positive, the 5-year survival is 71.5%, then 63. Then with chemoradiation is 70.4. Hardly any difference at 5 years, but there is a significant difference in 10 years. And we have to focus on long-term complications. That was my first idea about why we need TORS in oropharynx. Now, but when you talk about P16 negative, you do surgery and you do chemoradiation. Surgery 46.8%, and you talk about RTCT 18.5. A huge difference between survival when we come to P16 negative. So the conclusion was that for smokers and P16 negative oropharyngeal cancers, primary surgery is associated with improved long-term survival and dysphagia related outcomes. And that was our motto of including TORS into oropharynx. Now, this was a multi-institutional study of robotic surgery into oropharynx. They have taken many centers, they have taken 10 patients, and they have studied about P16 negative, positive smokers, non-smokers, and their conclusion was that robotic surgery done for oropharynx, either it is HPV positive or HPV negative, the survival is almost similar. But when you treat this patient with chemoradiation, the survival between P16 negative and positives is very different. So they said these are the diagrams and the showing about the margin status, about the survival in oropharynx, about P16 negative and positive, and P16 positive, HPV negative and positive. So the conclusion was that HPV negative patients behave much better if you do surgery in these patients as compared to chemoradiation. So this is transoral robotic surgery for oropharyngeal cancers alone, means only for early cancers. And what was the analysis? The local control was more than 94% if you do TORS for early oropharyngeal cancers. This was our study done by us in Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute, started in 2015. And the conclusion was that if you take T1, T2 oropharyngeal cancers, which are all HPV negative, and if you do surgery, the OS was around 94% and the mean follow-up around 29 months. So it means HPV negative patients are behaving much better with surgery as compared to chemoradiation. And this was in advanced stage where we have taken stage 3 and 4 because of the nodal disease. And again, we have seen when you do surgery in these patients who are purely HPV negative and a locally advanced cancers, you do surgery, then give radiation or chemoradiation, their survival was much better as compared to chemoradiation. So the conclusion was that again, HPV negative surgery is the treatment of choice. Now, transoral robotic surgery for squamous cell carcinoma, which was purely HPV negative. This was done by Viros Porcuna, and what analysis is again the same. If you do surgery for stage 1 and stage 2 and radiation is not required, the survival is around 94 or 95%. But when you go to stage 3 and stage 4, the survival is around 80%. So the analysis again for HPV negative surgery is recommended. And now we have compared the functional outcomes. We know now the oncology outcomes are much better when you do TORS for HPV negative. Now we have to talk about functional outcomes and quality of life when you do surgery versus chemoradiation. And the analysis was the swallowing dysfunctions are more with the definitive chemoradiation when we do a matched pair analysis. And it is not for at 1 year or 2 years. It is at long term, basically after 2 years. So recently there was a orated trial which said that the swallowing outcomes are bad with surgery at 1 year. So we don't compare this dysphagia outcomes at 1 year. We have to see after 2 years. So now if you compare open surgery with chemoradiation with TORS, this is a comparison, diagrammatic comparison. And you see the duration of stay or the treatment for open surgery is around 8 days, for chemoradiation is 50 days, and for TORS is 3 days. And the complication rates for open surgery and chemoradiation is almost similar. But when you move from open surgery or from chemoradiation to robotic surgery, the complication rate has come down significantly, less than 5%. So our focus was oncological outcomes and to decrease the morbidity, and that we have achieved by introducing this TORS into the treatment paradigms of oropharyngeal cancers. Now, when you start your robotic program for oropharynx, who are the ideal patients we should attempt surgery in these patients? So we have to select our patient very wisely because the new treatment option for these patients. So we should see ideal patients, patient-related considerations, tumor-related considerations, and surgeons-related considerations. So now our principle was maximizing exposure while minimizing surgical morbidity. So we should have a good exposure if you want to dock robotic arms into the oropharynx. If your exposure is bad, you cannot dock your robot, you cannot do surgery. There are the ideal patients. So you should always look for 8 T's: teeth, trismus, transfer dimensions, tongue, tilt, tori, treatment, prior radiotherapy has been given or not, and tumor. So the first thing is the exposure. And we always see every anesthetist is much interested in myelopathy scoring. When you see any patients who require surgery for oral cavity or oropharynx, they always do a scoring because they intubate the patients. And same is required by us as a robotic surgeons into oropharynx. We should always see the scoring by myelopathic scoring. And we classify the patient into class 1 to class 4. And class 1 are the best patients who have a good exposure and we can do a good surgery. So when you're planning any oropharyngeal cancer surgery or supraglottic cancers, we always need class 1 patients where we have a good exposure and we can reach deep into the cavities to take out the tumor with good margins. Class 2, yes, we can do oropharynx, difficult to do supraglottic cancers. Class 3 are not suitable candidate for any base tongue or supraglottic. Still, tonsillar cancers can be attempted. Class 4 are not a good candidate for any TORS surgeries. Then there are some biometric measures to evaluate the patient's suitability for transoral robotic surgery. We have to see the exposures. Can we expose in a good way to do our surgery with negative margins? And three parameters are very important to do this, and we can study that. One is the mandibular body height, the second is the hyoid mental distance, and the third is the neck circumference. These three parameters are required to be evaluated before you're planning your patients for robotic surgery. And this is the table which say that if the mandibular body height is more than 2.6 centimeter, the patient has a good exposure for introducing the robotic arms into the oropharynx to take out the tumor with good margins. When your hyoid mental distance is more than 5.5 centimeter, again you have a good exposure. When your neck circumference is more than 38.7 centimeter, it means it is adequate exposure. But when it is less, it is means thick necks are not a good candidate. Thinner necks are good candidates. So if the circumference is more than 42, you have a very bad exposures. So these three parameters should be evaluated for all patients when you are subjecting them to TORS. Now, few preoperative capillometric analysis to predict transoral robotic surgery exposure. There are three parameters: the distance between the postpharyngeal wall and the hyoid. This is the postpharyngeal wall, and this is the hyoid bone. This distance. If this distance is less than 3 centimeter, you will have a bad exposure. You cannot do a good supraglottic laryngectomies. If the distance between these two is more than 3 centimeter, then it's a good candidate. Then there's a distance between posterior pharyngeal wall and the soft palate. These are all radiological studies. So the distance is more than 8 mm, then you have good exposure. If it is less than 8 mm, very bad exposure. And then there is an angle between the epiglottis and the vertical plane of larynx. If this angle is more than 130 degree, then this patient has good exposure for TORS surgery to be attempted, and we can complete our surgery with good margins. So these parameters should be studied before giving anesthesia to the patients for attempting any TORS surgery. So good exposure, malapathic scoring, biometric analysis, and capillometric analysis should be done in all patients. So now what are the contraindications? If you have a trismus, you cannot put robotic arms to the oral cavity. Limited neck extensions, comorbid conditions, morbid obesity, microkinesia, microstomia, they are all relative contraindication. You cannot put robotic arms into the oral cavity. Then there are some tumor related considerations. The location of tumor is very important. The size is not so important, but the location is very important, and its involvement with the surrounding structures is very important. Like a tumor on tonsil, it is maybe T1 in size less than 2 centimeter, but going into the, I can say, fixed to the fascia over the medial pterygoid muscle. There is no mobility, we can say the lateral mobility. Then there are not a good candidate for TORS. So the size may be T1, but it involvement with the surrounding structure is like that. We should not do surgery in these patients. So location is must. The involvement with the surrounding structures should be known before attempting any surgery. So now I said approval was given by FDA in 2009 for only T1 and T2 of oropharyngeal cancers. And if you have a good exposure, you have a good experience, then you can select T3 and T4 cases. I said good exposure and good experience. It very must for patients who have bulky disease like T3 and T4. So T stage alone is not a sole criteria to determine candidacy for TORS. It is the location and it is the extension of the tumor to the surrounding structures. So before attempting any TORS surgery for oropharyngeal cancers, you should always read a MRI before going into the operation theater. So now this is my indication for attempting TORS. We can do radical tonsillectomy by TORS for T1, T2 tumors and exophytic T3 and T4 tumors. For base tongue, T1 and T2 tumors, exophytic T3 and infiltrative T4, we get a minimal involvement of genioglossus. supraglottic T1, T2, and hypopharynx T1. They are good candidates for TORS with good experience and good exposure. Now we should understand the complications and contraindications of transoral robotic surgery. So we have three contraindications like vascular, functional, and oncological. So I will say oncological contraindication are same for oral cavity and oropharynx. We are inoperable tumors. We should not touch with any technology, either open surgery or robotic surgery. But vascular contraindications we should know before attempting surgery for these patients, like tonsillar cancers with a history of retropharyngeal carotid artery. It is an we can say complicated surgery. You take out the tonsil, you leave carotid artery exposed at the base. Either you plan a plastic surgery for these patients or you don't attempt a surgery in these patients. When the tumor epicenter is there in the middle of the tongue base, the morbidity of resecting is much higher. We should not attempt as a initial surgeons. When the tumor is very close to the carotid bulb, you should not attempt surgery. Functionality, functional contraindications, when you take out too much of normal tissue, leading to more lot of side effects or morbidity like tracheostomy and and gastrostomy, then are the ideal candidate for TORS. Like when you're resecting more than 50% of deep tongue base musculatures, not a good candidate. Tumor resection requiring more than 50% of postpharyngeal wall, patient will have long-term dysphagia. Tumor requiring resection requiring up to 50% of tongue base and the entire epiglottis is not a good candidate. So before attempting surgery, we should know which are the ideal candidates for TORS. Now we have a lot of discussion about the cost. TORS is costly, radiation is cheaper. It's not like that. So when you compare the cost between TORS and radiation therapy, you should always compare the cost spent by the patient within 30 days of his treatment. And a lot of institutions have done the study and they have said that TORS is much cheaper than chemoradiation. A lot of analysis has been done, and till now, no study says that TORS is costly. But again, when you have to think about the outcomes, functional or oncological, the cost should not come in between. Now we have seen that if you do TORS in HPV negative, their functional outcomes are better and their oncological outcomes are much, much better. Then cost should not be the criteria to decide about which is the best treatment. So if you can see the guidelines given by NCCN now, they have introduced TORS in category 1 recommendation for oropharynx, which are T1 and T2 tumors. So maybe in future, when we don't have good results with chemoradiation for HPV negative, I think it's my perception, surgery will be the preferred treatment for HPV negative cancers in oropharynx in coming 5 years. This is all about TORS, patient selections, which patient requires that, which patient we should not go for TORS, and all about how we do it. So this is a basic conception of TORS in oropharyngeal cancers. And always, when you want to go for a good program, either is robotic programs or other programs, you should always work with a team. As a team, work and intelligence wins championship, and that is the basic of teamwork. You want to do good, you want to go long, please have a good team. So this is how robotic team works for our patients and for their safety. Thank you so much for listening me with all your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was indeed a very lucid presentation for all beginners and youngsters to understand what TORS is all about and what are the apt indications and what would be the right uh, you know, decisions to make before you take a patient to the OT. Just a couple of questions, sir, before we wrap it up. Uh, so always the debate has been, always the organ preservation versus transoral robotic surgery, and all the randomized control trials, whichever have been started, have always failed. Do you think it will be ever possible to have a randomized control trial comparing RCT, chemoradiotherapy versus TORS?
Randomized trials are very, very difficult to do between TORS and chemoradiation. Till now, we have a lot of retrospective trial. So head-to-head comparison are done. This Orator was one trial which was head-to-head comparison between TORS with the chemoradiation. But the problem with this study was very small study, only 32 patients in each arm. And all patients who underwent surgery, they did tracheostomy in all patients, will lead to a lot of functional morbidity after tracheostomy. So head-to-head trial is must for, I will say, for early cancers, for advanced cancers, and for HPV negative separately and for HPV positive separately. And their randomized studies has been done in US for HPV positive, but HPV negative, that the study was dropped just because of there were patients accrual was not done. But randomization is a must to prove which treatment is better.
Because most of the data that we are seeing, the emerging data, because TORS has been about just over a decade or a little over that old, and what we see is the emerging data suggests that it's a much better treatment option as compared to chemoradiotherapy when it compare it in the long-term side effects, the dysphagia at about 10, 15 years down the lane. Even the RTOG trials earlier had shown that there is an increased morbidity due to patients who underwent chemoradiotherapy in the organ preservation trial. So the next question, which is again something which even the surgeons and the radiation oncologists are like they talk about, is the margin status. Your take on that, sir? So can we achieve a 5 millimeter margin every time?
So Anand, when you talk about margin status, we should always compare the local control rate, not the survival outcomes. So what we have seen, the local control rate, either it is HPV positive or HPV negative, is more than 95%. And if you see the margin status in our series or rest of the series in the Western world, we have not taken margins more than 4 or 5 mm. And the deep margin is never more than 2 to 3 mm, either it is HPV positive or HPV negative. So I will say from my personal experience, we always try to take at least 5 mm mucosal margins in final pathology, not in initial resection margins, and at least 2 to 3 mm deep margins in the final pathology. But yes, the deep margins sometimes you get at 1 mm or 2 mm. But when you're an operating surgeon, you always know how deep you are, how away you are from the tumor. The deep margin will be always an issue. But seeing my own surgical outcomes, I can say that even it is HPV positive, HPV negative, deep margins more than 2 mm is self-sufficient, and mucosal margins more than 3 mm, I can say that is good one, because there's a lot of contraction in oropharynx as compared to oral cavity when you take out your specimen. Because you see the tonsillar fossa is a stretch structure, and you have to do a tonsillectomy, always shrink more than 50% immediately.
And this is where I would like to resonate whatever you have taught me. Every time have a discussion with the pathologist to orient them and take the specimen yourself. Try to tell them that this is probably the barrier. Here we don't go by the metrics, but probably the tissue barriers which would be preventing the tumor spread laterally.
Absolutely.
So then another point was the salvage TORS. Today, a lot of cases that we see, even what you have also demonstrated, have been most often in the salvage settings, because primary treatment modality even now is chemo RT. Do the indications or whatever you have presented hold similar to patients who undergo salvage TORS also? Do you look at any other specific things when you are looking at a salvage case?
Anand, the indications are almost same, but I would like to operate on a patients who I have seen before chemoradiation. So like patients are coming from distant areas and they have received chemoradiation somewhere else. So you don't have pre-chemoradiation volumetric studies with you. So for tonsil, I will say that for tonsil, still easy to do a radical tonsillectomy in a radiation failure cases. But when you talk about base tongue, you never know what was the exact size of the tumor pre-chemo radiation, and you don't know the margins to be taken. But always when we are doing a salvage surgery, I would like to do and flap inset, either it is radical tonsillectomy or base tongue resections. Why? Because the morbidity is much higher, the chances of bleeding is much higher when you do a salvage cases. So I'm more towards plastic recons in salvage settings when I do surgery for these patients. But indications are almost same.
So coming to that, the current AJCC classification for oropharynx, though they have split it into a HPV positive, negative, don't you feel that it is still more oriented to an organ preservation treatment rather than a surgically? And unlike how the oral cavity which is more surgically driven, this T staging. Should we, the current whatever staging or the defect classifications have been provided have not been very robust. Do you think it's time that we look at changing this as well?
So Anand, that is always my question during the conferences. When you talk about oropharynx, it is not a surgical staging. It is just clinical staging. And you always treat the patients based on MRI or PET CT. You never know the exact staging. It can be understaged or overstaged. So when you do surgery in these patients, you can know the exact stage. It is stage 3 or stage 4. And then you know the survival outcomes according to stage. So I will say the HPV negative tumors of oropharynx behave similar as oral cavity cancers rather than HPV positive oropharyngeal cancers. So I would always say that's why I'm saying HPV negative oropharynx should be treated like oral cavity cancers rather than directly going for chemoradiation.
There's a question from Toprani sir who has asked, how do you select your patients as far as the neck node status is concerned when it comes to a HPV negative case?
So sir, my personal experience says now all HPV negative patients, if they're operable without a great morbidity, should go for surgery followed by radiation or chemoradiation. Now we have to select patients whom the morbidity less. The morbidity is basically because of the oral resection or oropharyngeal resection rather than neck node dissection. So if my tumor is T1 in oropharynx and my node is N2 and it is HPV negative, my inclination will be towards surgery to give him a better functional outcomes and oncological outcomes, because I know now HPV negative behaves very bad with chemoradiation. But now if I have T4 tumor of oropharynx and with N2 disease, so I will not go for surgery in these patients because the morbidity will be much higher. So the selection is not based on nodal status only, it is based on primary stage also. If it is T1 and T2 with N2, I will go for surgery. If it is T3, T4 with N2 disease, I would rather to be on safer side rather than going for surgery in these patients.
Again, going through the large series of patients that you had and what we had seen, the outcomes, post. So what TORS allows us is to tailor the treatment. So even the studies that are published from your centers, they also show that you can tailor the treatment much better rather than giving a very standard treatment. Your take on this is, so what all do you consider for adjuvant treatment after surgery or a TORS procedure?
So like Anand, if we take our patients and the PET CT or MRI says we have T1, T2 tumors with N1 disease. So most of the time you can have N0 disease pathologically. So what we've seen in our studies, if you take 100 patients, at least 20% patients can avoid any adjuvant treatment. They are either T1, T2, N0, final pathology. And now if you go towards T1, T2, it can be N1, and patient may require radiation or may not require radiation therapy depending on other pathological factors. So in our series, we have seen that only 35 to 40% patients required chemoradiation. 30% patient avoided any adjuvant treatment and rest required only radiation therapy. So now you compare surgery only, surgery, then radiation only, and then surgery with chemoradiation. The patients who required surgery alone or surgery with radiation therapy, their functional outcomes was much better and oncological outcomes are really good. But now the part which is still a dilemma to everyone is the surgery followed by chemoradiation. The functional outcomes, I admit, will be fairly worse and comparable to chemoradiation, but the oncological outcomes in these patients are better when you compare with CTRT. But still, we need to do a lot of studies on this. I cannot say right now. These are ideal candidate for TORS when you have advanced oropharyngeal disease with advanced nodal disease.
In such patient groups, would it be possible to further de-intensify the radiation or the post-op adjuvant radiotherapy that we would be giving?
So like Dr. Toprani is asking me, can we avoid the primary from the RT field? Now a lot of studies are done mainly in HPV positive cancers, but till today I will say for HPV negative, we are still giving primary boost to the primary site. Can we omit it or we cannot? We have never done a study like this, but for CA tonsil T1 and T2 with nodal disease, I would love to omit the primary area from radiation field because the morbidity is just because of that. It is not because of the neck radiation therapy. It is because the radiation therapy to the primary site. So it will be good if we can do a study and we can avoid giving radiation to the primary site. The functional outcomes will be much better if we can avoid that.
That's all the questions that we have, sir. Take probably concluding remarks from you, sir.
I think the HPV negative cancers, mainly in oropharynx, this should be the first line of treatment in coming next 5 years. And we should try to get early cancers if you want to be trained into that and do more and more cases. Once you are trained, then you move towards more advanced cancers. And if you do screening programs, you can detect early cancers. And India is an endemic for oropharynx as compared to Western world or United States or Europe. And we should bring our own data to support us for HPV negative cancer patients.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That Mahinder want to
Thank
say.
you, Surendra, uh, and thank you, Anand, for taking your time on this Friday for this webinar. I am a witness to Surendra's journey on robotic transoral surgery right from day one. And it's really delighting to see how he is shaped as an accomplished surgeon. To tell you a bit about the story of transoral surgery and robotic surgery. When we were establishing urology robotic surgery in the year 2009 in India, at that time, I had a friend here. I have a friend in Henry Ford, my colleague, Dr. Ganam Tamer, who had just come after training with Weinstein. And he was looking for robotic time, and I didn't have any idea that transoral surgery is possible with that. So I talked to Ganam, and it appealed to me because as a practicing urologist, I have seen a lot of people mutilated with jaw splitting surgeries and reconstructions and all. And I said, my God, if it can be done so easily, why we should not try it? If any one of you attended 2012 Vaticudi Global Robotics meeting in Delhi, I had brought Ganam, and then I was looking for head and neck surgeons and cancer surgeons. But the limitation was that I was looking at a place where the robots were available and they were not convinced, and it did not take off till we found Surendra Davaz, and he has really supported activities of the foundation and dissemination of it. I have one question to both of you experts. Objective of the foundation is not to promote robotic surgery. Objective of the foundation is how can we give best to our patients in the given circumstances. And that is what I would like you to emphasize, that word is not for ideals. Whatever is ideal may not be available, and whatever is available may not be acceptable. I was just chatting with one of the colleagues from our neighboring country, Pakistan, and I know about that country as well as I know about India, and similar places or the remote places, even in India, don't go outside it. Now, there are patients galore who cannot go, cannot afford to be sent outside. Surgeons wants to do their best. So in nutshell, could you tell Surendra that in given circumstances, what ideally they should do briefly if they don't have an access to robot? Definitely, decidedly, you have proved that if there is a way, don't sit on a patient, refer to the best possible place, because first chance as a surgeon is the best chance for the patient.
Absolutely, sir. These are all my words also. First chance is the best chance for any cancer patients. If you treat them at the best, at the first step, their survival will be better. So now the same thing, head neck cancer is basically more prevalent in our Asian population. And the robot came into picture for oropharynx. It was not for oral cavity, basically for oropharynx. And there's a huge difference between our patients and Western populations about the survival. Why? Because we have HPV negative cancer, they have HPV positive. And we don't have access to robot and they have access to robot. Now we can improve the survival, but in HPV positive in Western world, they can improve the functional outcomes. But here in India or in Asian populations, we can improve the survival and the functional outcomes both when you bring this technology into this area. But now if you don't have access to robot, you cannot do surgery. All surgery cannot be done with laser. Like for tonsil, you can try with laser, you can try with electrocautery. But when you move to base tongue is an area where a robot has a definitive advantage over any of the technology used till today into oropharynx, maybe laser, electrocautery, cryo, whatever they have used. For supraglottic, people use laser, people use robot now. There's a significant difference between the surgical time. And when you use laser, a lot of fog is there, a lot of edema is there. So morbidity with robot is less as compared to laser. So I will say for base tongue, robot is best technology. For tonsil, you can use either technology, but I will prefer to do a robot because it's much cleaner and safer and bloodless surgery. For supraglottic, again, robot is better than laser, but access to robot is very difficult to in our area. Why? Because it looks so costly to everyone. So we should have a robot definitely designed for head neck surgeons, which is less costly. And the instruments are not like what we have in Intuitive. They are disposables. We have to change every 10 times. We should have long lasting instruments, cheaper system so that we can give best survival to these patients.
Now, since the participants are for this subject, I think I was very pessimistic looking at the number of participants, and probably magnetic force was Dabas speaking. Uh, Let me tell to the participants, Foundation is deep in improving the quality of surgical education, training surgeons, because ultimate objective is to improve patient outcome, which is totally dependent on surgeon experience. So we would be running in some certificate courses for postgraduates throughout the year and webinars. Stay tuned. If you would like that such courses are directly informed to you, please register on our website and Dave will tell you more details about how we go. And I once again thank both these gentlemen who are the experts. And Dabas, last question. How many people in India do transoral robotic surgery now?
Actively, if you ask me, I will say one or two. And inactively, there are 10 or 12 surgeons who are doing TORS. So actively means who are doing more than 3 or 4 procedures in a month. I can say that.
And how many of them are your trained students?
So I can say in Delhi, there are 5 or 6 surgeons who are doing maybe once in a while. They're all trained by me. But I am just like you made him a proctor. I am going here and there to train people. So I'm sad about this. People have not picked up the way I thought they will pick up. Maybe because the number is less, and maybe sometimes they are so busy they are not coming with robotic technology into this. But I am very sad we are not able to pick up TORs in our country till now.
I think we will be able to, because this is really a problem, and I don't think the epidemiology has improved a lot of oral cancers. And thank you very much once again. And Dave, back to you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your hard work today on this program. It was really excellent. I learned a lot, and I'm just a TV guy. So, but the importance of transoral robotic surgery, I've seen many videos over the years with my work with the foundation and the improvement over splitting a person's face open. It's unbelievable what you can do in the organ preservation. And thank you for your work and for sharing your knowledge with our guests today.